Welcome to Grow Her Wings, a podcast by the Malou Project, a 501c3 based in Jacksonville, Florida, with a mission to connect girls to aviation. We are your hosts, Jenn and Carrie, and we invite you to join us as we meet new people, talk to old friends, and learn new lessons on the path to inspire more of us to grow our wings.
Immediately shot down by my boss. A couple other suggestions get thrown out, but as soon as my idea got shot down, I saw the guy sitting across from me kind of look up like, I thought that was a good idea. So he waits, and then he says the exact same thing. Suddenly it's being adopted. It's something we're going to work on, but he took it one step further, and this is where he's an ally. He said, well, it's the same idea Carrie just came up with about 15 minutes ago.
Yep.
I go, that's the voice that you're cutting out from your side. If you don't, it's not enough. I go, my idea was being adopted. That was good.
That's the point.
He took it one step further to point out that he shouldn't have had to say it for my idea to get adopted. I'm like, you need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just forcing a system on another system that's going to be just as ill-fated.
Yes.
She's like, I'm like, you're 16. I don't expect you to understand all of this. But
that's why we have this whole organization, right? The Malou Project. That's to share that message of like, hey, it's not us versus them. It's not one identity against another. It's about changing the whole society, like having these conversations, deciding that we're going to talk about these things and just finding ways together where everybody has buy-in of what we're going to go with, right?
Ways together to have these conversations to move forward. We can look back. The past is important. I mean, looking at the stories of before women could vote, before Blacks could vote, before women could serve in the military, before women could serve as pilots, and then combat pilots, and then all of the things being opened up. We were just watching Men of Honor. I forgot that we had to desegregate the military. So history is good, but if we keep blaming people for history instead of having a conversation, giving that advice, having that conversation to move forward, I fear we're just going to replace a bad system with another bad system.
Yeah, it's like I keep with my friends, you know, and when I get into these conversations, like we just have got to recognize that every situation is uniquely different in the socioeconomic situation. Like it's just every situation, and you cannot say blatantly that humans are going to do bad things to other humans just because they're bad humans. Like there are, yes. There are those few cases, but like, you know, and deviant people will want to have more deviant people around them, and that's why we must have anti-deviance kind of messaging of how we avoid these things. And, you know, how will the future, you know, people from 200 years from now judge us?
It's kind of a phrase of the opposite of sexist isn't not sexist, it's anti-sexist. The opposite of racist isn't I'm not racist, it's anti-racist.
Or is it not even having to do anything with any race or anything to do with any gender? Like, is that really?
It's like we always discussed, wouldn't it be great someday if it was just a person taking command or a person flying something versus right now we still have to be the first this, the first. It'd be great when it's the first female fill in the blank, the first Black fill in the blank, the first Hispanic fill. Doesn't have to be the headline. It's just who that person is takes command of, who that person is just accomplished this. Seeing them, all the differences that they have. Because we should just see that.
Yeah, based solely on their merits. That's it.
I think there's a Martin Luther King Jr. quote in there.
I'm sure there is. Oh, and that's why we had to like establish this thing, right? The Malou Project, because it's just the whole thing. It's such a complex problem, and you can't just narrow it down to one thing. But what is the vehicle that we get that conversation started? And just like in flying, the airplane does not care. I think Bessie Coleman said it the best, right? Like the air is the only place free of prejudice. Like that,
Yeah.
aviation will kick your butt no matter what you look like.
No, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you came from, how well prepared or how ill prepared.
How smart you think you are.
Smart you are. It's a great equalizer.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
such an equalizer. And I know you and I get asked of, especially now with the aviation job market being in such a, it's in a negative right now. We're not trying to create, it would be great to create more pilots, professional pilots, but it's more people have the opportunity to fly. I think you said it once, every kid should fly. Every kid can fly.
Absolutely.
It's just a skill set that just think of the things that we learned in our lives to deal with based on skills we learned from flying.
I think that one of the things that Jason said on one of our podcasts, right, was that just understanding like that you may not have the right answer and being able to be open to like, hey, this is what I think is the right answer. And that's what being aircrew teaches you is that, hey, you might have the right answer. You might think you have the right answer. You might think that your answer is infallible, but
Yes.
someone in the crew might say, you know what? I don't think that's the right answer. Let's talk about it.
If the crew speaks up, you're going to learn how to further, deep down into why this is correct or why, I take your input. And not even just a career airplane. Think of a four ship.
Yeah.
Too. There is input. I've never been in a formation debrief outside of pilot training, but I'm sure flight lead finds out his ideas are not infallible or her ideas are not infallible during that debrief.
Listen, Carrie, I've been a flight lead, and I will tell you, my ideas are infallible 100% every time.
Well,
I tell two, just to shut up and only tell me when I'm on fire. That's all I want to hear.
Oh,
good. It works out.
Yeah. But I keep thinking back because usually when the guys, they'll see me working on something and I've got the Malou picture as my backdrop on my personal laptop. I'm like, what's that?
Oh, cool.
Tell them. Like, oh, it's a friend of mine and I that I met when I was in the Air Force, and we want to give better advice than we got. It keeps coming. That's the first thing I keep thinking of is it started with, we didn't get that great advice. And not necessarily because there weren't women. There weren't a lot of women around when we were either going to college, going to pilot training and starting out our careers. But sometimes even the advice from the women wasn't that great.
Yes.
Because why? Maybe they didn't get great advice because there were even fewer around when they started. So I am still so grateful for that day sitting around my pool, discussing things and going, man, I wish I'd gotten that advice when I was, 20-something-year-old first lieutenant showing up at my first assignment when they're making jokes about, hey, we had to go through sensitivity training because you're our first female pilot. Why would you have to go through sensitivity training? Because suddenly we're going to be sensitive? I remember that's how it struck me. I'm like, why is the Air Force making them do sensitivity training?
Isn't that so interesting?
That already right there was institutional bias. And I didn't realize it then,
Yes.
but I realize it now.
Yes.
I'm telling them right there, this is different.
Yes.
You may not be able to fully adapt to this unit being the only girl unless we give you this training. So back when I was a young lieutenant, I didn't realize it, but now we're in a position where we can say, hey, we've got some institutional biases. We don't need to launch sensitivity training. We may need to do some implicit bias training.
Yeah. Or just teach people to be cool to one another and not put up with like juvenile, sophomoric humor that's not appropriate ever, just because women are in the office. Like, during 2013, we had the morale and welfare search, right? CSAF put out. And we had required sit downs with our bosses, and my boss was a colonel, and I won't give any more indications of where I was at the time, but I was at the table, and he starts telling the story about how when he was a Marine, and if women started flying with him, and that he was so worried about it, like they wouldn't be able to throw up and pass out in toilets anymore because there's going to be women around, and blah blah blah. And I got physically upset, and he's like, but then it turned out women could fly just as good as men could. And I really was like, sir, I really need you to stop right now. Like, I'm sorry. I don't mean any disrespect, but this is not the messaging or the thing that I'm comfortable with right now. I'm feeling very much like this is not appropriate. And he's like, Jen, what's your problem? And this other retired 06 who was sitting at the table, luckily, he's like, yeah, Jen's really right now.
It's so back in the 80s, that would have been a compliment. Now we know that's a microaggression.
Yes.
No, women can fly just as good as men. It's not a compliment.
No. And so now I just make a point every time. I'm like, I hope you guys can fly as good as I can, because I know I got skills. So I don't know.
It's like that exercise. I sent it to a few people recommending, because my sister's always looking for ways to start a conversation. And right now in her house, it's starting the conversation without a particular part of the family immediately taking it in one direction. So I like that exercise of you write, common beliefs or biases down. Like homeless people are lazy. But then if you pick that one, you put them all in a jar. If you pick that one out, someone that would get it would say, read it and read the opposite. Homeless people are ambitious. And if you think, what? You might have a bias there. You might. The key word is you might. And but it's waking you up to things that you might think you're not biased to. So I think about that a lot, of what are other things that we could, you and I right now, write those things down as commonly accepted thoughts, and then read the opposite and have a conversation from there.
Yeah, like kids need education. Like maybe we talk about how we should learn from kids a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And give them those opportunities of flight and aviation and anything in aviation career field, anything, from controlling it to designing it to the logistics of it to the maintenance of it. I mean, all of them, if we can just expose kids at young ages to those problem sets, the amount that we would learn as adults.
Yes. A lot of stuff gets cluttered in our filter. Michelle used that phrase of a filter. I really like that. As we age, as we grow up, and we're supposed to be getting more and more intelligent, but there's other noise that's coming in and it's clouding or clogging our filter. Yeah. But if we were to present these same issues to a 5-year-old, 10-year-old even, and see, we could learn. We could learn from that.
And I love that. That's what I think our whole purpose of, right, the Malou Project is. And that's why we have the symbol that it is, the lion. That's a masculine lion, obviously, but with the varied colors.
Yes.
The halo, which is kind of a crown, but also a halo of imperfection perfect.
Mm-hmm. It's strength. We're perfectly imperfect. And we can still show our strength.
Yeah, and it takes every single color of the rainbow.
Yes.
All of it.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to have met you, that we can sit and have conversations and share that message, give that better advice than we got. And by doing so, we're reaching out and finding these other amazing people that I have learned something every day. And I hope we can, as we continue to have these conversations with these people, to get that out so other people can watch and learn something from them every day.
Yes. And if people want to subscribe, or if they want to give us options or ideas of who would be great for a podcast, or if they want to even write us and let us know that they're interested in an interview, we'd be grateful to have anybody online and talk to them and learn and explore more of what their ideas are. And so if people want to write to us or contact us, they can do that at themileux.org, which is THEMILIEUX.org, or at info@themileux.org, or at the Mileux Project at gmail.com. Carrie, do you have anything else to add to our conversation before we check out?
No, hope you watch, hope you learn. We look forward to having a conversation with you.
Yes, and give us feedback, all feedback. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.